Hi, I'm Chad with Move Forward Guitar. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you how to play power chords. So those are some power chords. I was just messing around, just a little progression. I was just improvising on right there, nothing that I planned out. But power chords are really cool sounding chords. You can use them in a lot of different types of music. You'll find certain styles that'll use them almost exclusively. Other styles can use them more sparingly and throw them in for some cool sounds. And they're really useful, and they're a good stepping stone to learn before you move into bar chords. So if you're still just playing open chords and you want to start playing bar chords, I think they're a good stepping stone before you start playing bar chords, because they're a bigger spread, more like a bar chord is, but you're not barring anything. So it can get your hand used to playing a shape like that, and then when you're ready to play bar chords, I think it'll be a lot easier for you. And power chords are also known as five chords. So if you see something like a G5, that's a power chord. It's a G power chord. And they're called five chords because they don't have a third in them. And all that means, in a major chord or a minor chord, you would have, for a major chord, you'd have a root, a major third, and a fifth. And for a minor chord, you'd have a root, a minor third or a flat third, and a fifth. And those are just the intervals. You don't have to worry too much about that if you don't understand it. But power chords or five chords don't have thirds in them. So they only have a root and a fifth. That means that they're neither minor or major. You can use them in place of a minor chord or a major chord because there's no third in it. So if I was playing this is a G power chord. It's just a G, which is a root, a D, which is a fifth, and then I'm doubled up the root, so I just have another root. That's a G5 or a G power chord. That could be used as a major chord or a minor chord. It doesn't matter because that third's not in it. Don't worry too much about the theory if you don't understand that, but that's why you'll see them written as five chords as well. So a power chord is a five chord as well. And the way I played it when I was demonstrating, I was playing with a doubled up root like I just showed you, but you don't have to do that. You could just play two notes instead of three notes. So that's just leaving out the extra root note. And I'm going to explain what I'm talking about in a second, but you could either play them with just the root and the fifth, or you could play them with the root, the fifth, and another root as well, which are really common ways to play these power chords. So I'm going to show you what I'm holding and then talk a little bit more about it and different things you can do with it and how you can play it on other string sets. So right now I'm holding a G5 or a G power chord, and I'm playing with the doubled up root. So I'm holding my first finger on the 6th string 3rd fret, which is my G note. Then I'm holding my third finger on the 5th string 5th fret, which is a D note, which is the 5th of G, but don't worry about that if you don't understand intervals. And then I'm playing another G note with my 4th finger on the 4th string 5th fret. And then all the other strings I'm muting out. So all I'm doing is laying my first finger on all these strings and muting them out. The only note that I'm pushing down is this one on the 6th string 3rd fret. All the other ones are just getting muted out. And this one and this one, which is the 5th and 4th string, are being played by my 3rd and 4th fingers. So technically I'm just muting out the 3rd, 2nd, and 1st string with my first finger, just lightly laying my finger on top of those. If you're playing a bar chord, you push all those down, but since I'm just playing a power chord, I'm muting those out, so I'm just lightly touching them, which makes it a lot easier to play than a bar chord. I'm only having to worry about this one note and muting the rest out. So that might be something to practice at first when you're getting this down, is just to play any note really, but you can start on this G note like I am and play that note with your first finger, lay your finger flat across the other strings. It's flat, but it's not like this. It needs to be tilted back a little bit. So your finger's back on a little bit of an angle. So you're playing more on the side of your finger instead of flat across here. That's where the strings are touching. And just lightly touch all those strings, hold down this one note, and see if you can get it so that just that note rings out when you strum through all the strings. So if you hear, I'm only hearing that G note, the rest are muted strings. And then when you get that, you can add in your third and fourth fingers and try to make sure that those strings are still muted out. And that you're only hearing the bottom three strings, the 6th, 5th, and 4th string. The 3rd, 2nd, and 1st should sound like this. So that's one way to play a power chord. And you can move this to the next string set. So instead of playing it on the 6th, 5th, and 4th string, I could play it on the 5th, 4th, and 3rd string. And I'd still have a power chord. If I'm in the 3rd fret still with my first finger, now I'm playing a C power chord or C5 because that's a C note under my first finger, which is the root note. So now you should only be hearing the 5th, 4th, and 3rd string, and everything else should be muted out. So your 2nd and 1st string should still be muted out with your first finger just slightly touching and laying across it. Your 6th string is going to be muted out by the tip of your first finger just slightly touching up underneath the 6th string. So you could take the shape and move it down to the next string set. So if I'm playing here, I'm going from a G power chord or G5 down towards the floor to a C5 or a C power chord. So you could go back and forth and work on that. Or you could take this and go up one whole step to the A power chord or an A5. And then you could go down to the next string set and go from C to D. And look on the screen and you can see what frets I'm in, but it's just the same shape but in different frets, and you'll be able to see what I'm doing by looking at the screen. So that would be going from a G5, G power chord, A5 or A power chord, C5 or C power chord, to D5 or D power chord. Or if you wanted, you could go straight horizontal. You could go G, A, B, C. Then you could even go D here if you can reach, or even E here if you can reach. And if you have an electric guitar, you could even go farther up. Or you could go G, A, B here on the next string set, C, D, E, and then you could go back to G. And that's going from basically the key of G, but you could do it in any key. So if I started back here on G flat or F sharp, it'd be the same distances that I was moving, but I'm having to be in different frets now. But don't worry too much about that. For now, you can just start with one power chord and move it around and see what sounds good together, and you'll find stuff that sounds good together pretty easily. You'll be able to hear if you like that sound or not. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be in the same key. You might find something that isn't in the same key but sounds good to your ears. Technically that wouldn't be in the same key, but it has kind of a nice sound, kind of a cool dark sound. So that's a common way to play the power chords, or you can leave out your fourth finger and do the same thing. You could just play, I'll start with the G power chord again. You could play your first finger on the 6th string, 3rd fret, and your third finger on the 5th string, 5th fret, and then just mute out the rest of the strings. So that's still a power chord. You still have a root and a 5th. You're just not doubling up that root again. So it's not as full of a sound, but there's going to be situations where this sounds better. Especially if you have a lot of overdrive, you might want less notes in there ringing out, or there's just situations, even if you're playing acoustic guitar, where you like to sound better. So just take that shape and you can move it all around, and then the same thing as we did before, you can move these down to the next string set, so the 5th and 4th string, exact same thing, you're just leaving your 4th finger out and muting out the rest of the strings. I'm just improvising here. I'm not doing anything special. I'm just moving these power chords around, and you can do the same. Just see what sounds good, which places on the fretboard sound good to you, and which different power chords sound good to you. You'll come up with your own stuff really easily. And you can play any type of rhythm. You could play a more heavy rhythm with distortion, or you could play a more muted rhythm. It doesn't matter. There's tons of stuff you can do. Just mess around with it. You'll come up with tons of different things, tons of songs, and it's a lot of fun to mess around with these. So those are power chords or 5 chords, and like I said, they're really useful. You'll have a lot of fun with them and can use them in all different types of music and different types of settings and sounds that you're creating with your guitar. So just play around with them, come up with your own stuff, and be sure to subscribe because we add at least one new lesson every day.